Welcome, my name is Falonier, and this is my Learn to Lioranboard 2 series, where I show you different things that you can use inside Lioranboard 2, so you can go and make some really awesome stuff for your stream. And today, we're going to talk about strings, what they are, and some different ways that you can use them inside Lioranboard 2. So let's switch over to the program and take a look. Also note that this is the first video in this series where I will be providing a GitHub link down in the description where you can download the deck that I'm going to be showing you today, and you can follow along with me inside your Lioranboard as we go through the process. So feel free to hop down there, install the deck, and run with me. Alright, so with Lioranboard 2 open, we're going to go ahead and open our stream deck, and we're going to we're going to connect, Learn to Lioranboard 2. These are the three buttons that we're going to be doing string stuff in, and we're going to need the stream deck open. That way we can trigger these buttons and see all different kinds of effects that we're going to make. So we're going to hold this off to the side over here. We're going to double click and go into Learn to Lioranboard 2. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how strings work inside Lioranboard. Now, I do have another video on variables that covers a bunch of really interesting information as far as how variables work in the program. If you'd like, check over there. You'll see a card. Pop that video open. Follow it along if you get lost. And the first thing we're going to see is this first box, how Lioranboard sees strings versus numbers. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to save two different variables. One, we're going to call not a string, and it's going to hold the number 6. The other one is called definitely a string, and it's going to hold the number 6 wrapped in quotes. And this is how we know that this is a string. Now, to understand what strings are just a series of letters, numbers, and characters back to back. It can make a word, it can make a sentence, it can be gibberish like information on the back of a gift card. It's just a collection of those characters in a series. In this situation, the number 6, and this is a number, and down here we have the number 6 inside of a string, and Lioranboard treats those a little bit differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit save. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this one is not checked off. These right here have been checked off, so they're not going to do anything when we click the button in the stream deck. And this one we want to have on because we want this part to do something. So we'll hit save, hit tab, and type string. So we have string 1. This is the first button in our strings, and we're going to click this. Now we see here that not a string is 6. This is green, which means it's a value. Or a number, I'm sorry. And then definitely a string is the number 6 written in quotes. And this is how we know that this is a string, is that the text here is blue. It's Lioranboard's way of easily identifying to you whether or not something is a number or a string. Now let's talk about why that difference matters. So we're going to go back into our button. We're going to close this because we don't need this part anymore. And we're going to open this one. Why the differences matter, let's talk about addition. So now we have not a string, which is currently being held as a variable in the button. We're going to add the number 1 to the not a string, and we're going to add the number 1 to definitely a string. And we're going to see how that changes depending on whether or not something is a number or a string. So with this unchecked, we're going to hit save, hit tab to open up the variable viewfinder, type string, we're going to go to string 1, and we're going to hit this button again. So now we've added 1 to both of them. What that's done is it's increased the number from 6 to 7 when it's a number, but if it's a string, it adds the number to the end of the string. So if we were to add 100, the information held in the string would be 6100. So it's not doing numerical addition, it's just tacking it on to the end of the string. And this is how we can get information like what you see again on the back of a gift card, where it's just a bunch of numbers back to back in a series. So now we see how doing addition is different for doing it on a number versus doing it on a string. Exact same thing happens when we're talking about division and subtraction. The problem is that when you do those, it will actually crash when you try to do those math factors on a string, because you can't do that kind of math on a string, and it will cause Lioranboard to crash. Big hint there, make sure if you're doing math that you're doing math on a number and not math on a string. So let's close this one, go to the next one. So let's see how if statements treat strings when comparing it to a number. So we have our if statement, if not a string is less than 10, then we'll get this response. Otherwise, we'll get this response. Same thing, if definitely a string is less than 10, we'll get this response. Otherwise, we'll get this one. And remember, right now, not a string is holding the value 7, the number. So if 7 is less than 10, it'll tell us that 7 is less than 10. Otherwise, it'll tell us that 7 is somehow greater than 10. Now, definitely a string, which is currently 6-1 wrapped in quotes, we're gonna see if it's lower than 10. If 6-1 is lower than 10, we're gonna get this response. If it's not, we're gonna get this response. So we're gonna make sure this is the only thing unchecked. We're gonna hit save, tab, go to string 1. We have 7 and 6-1. We're gonna hit this. Now, not a string, which is 7. 7 is less than 10. That's correct. 6-1 is greater than 10, which means 61 is greater than 10. That's correct. So that lets us know that Lioranboard, if it sees a string that is just numbers, it's going to treat that as a value when it's going to treat it as a number when comparing it to other numbers. So if you have a string that is just numbers in it, those comparisons are going to work whether it is a string or it is a number. So that's good to know. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is actually something called a string variable, which is a variable type that we haven't talked about here on this series yet. So we're going to uncheck this, and we're going to see now that we can save a string to a variable called a string variable. It's going to read the same way, but the way you can add information to it is different than how we're currently doing it. Let's give an example. So we have a set string variable. We're going to call it string_var. We're going to leave relative unchecked. That's important. And we're going to get the string inside the variable that says this is the beginning of the text. So we're going to hit save, tab. We're going to go back to string 1, and we're going to remove all these variables from the button because we don't need that anymore. We're going to click this string variable, and as you can see, it's blue, so we know it's a string. This is the beginning of the text. Awesome. So that's the same way as if we had written that in a set local variable button and wrapped it in quotes. So we'll hit done. Let's go back into it. So now underneath it, we're gonna uncheck this so it works. And then string var relative yes. And this part was added on as a string. What's gonna happen when we do this again? So tab, string 1. We're gonna bounce back and forth a lot today, so try to keep up. All right, we're gonna clear the variable out. We're gonna press this button again. This is the beginning of the text, and this was added as a string. So we can see here that the relative box, if it's checked, it keeps what the information that was there in the variable, and it tacks this next part onto the end of it. What this also means is the inverse, that if the relative box is not checked, it's going to overwrite, and we can test that by clicking this, turning it back off. So the only thing we're going to be doing is essentially setting string var back to this is the beginning of the text. Test that super fast. String. Boom. And it removed the information that was held in it before, and it changed it back to this is the beginning of the text. So if you want it to overwrite everything in it, leave it unchecked, it's not going to be relative. And if you want to just add information onto the end of it, you can check the relative and it'll add that on. Now, to show here, we can do this with variables as well. And to do this, we just take a variable that we already are holding information for. Right now, here we have one that says var equals the word variable in all caps. And we're going to add to the end of our string. This part was added on as, and then we're going to use the variable var to fill in the end of it. But to use that variable, we have to wrap it in our backslashes and dollar signs because this isn't a yellow box. If we're in a white box and we're calling a variable into it, we have to make sure we wrap it. And I've gone over this in other videos. If you know, you know. So we're gonna hit save. Go back in here, just gonna boom. So var is variable, And this part was added on as and then we just took what was held inside var and placed it right there at the end of the sentence. Super cool. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're talking about changing strings. So let's go in here, take a look. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna turn a string into a number when you specifically need it to be a number. So if you're holding information, you're holding a series of numbers held in a string and you want that to be represented as an actual number, maybe you wanna add numbers onto it or do math to it, we would use a string to number command. So here we have the variable called a string, and it's holding the number 10 as a string, so we got it wrapped in quotes. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our string to number command. We're gonna take our a string variable, we're gonna stick it in our yellow box, and we're going to hold the value of that string converted to a number inside a variable called now a number. So we're gonna hit save, hit save. We're gonna go into string 2 because it's our second button. We're gonna press this and boom. So we had our string that was 10 and now it's been converted to the number 10. So we can now do math to it, addition, subtraction, multiplication. Y'all know what math is. Something else we can do to a string once we have it is we can either lowercase the letters in the string or we can capitalize them or uppercase them. So here we have a string and it is my name with sporadic capitalization in it. And then we're going to use the string lowercase. I don't know how I messed that part up. We're going to use the string lowercase and held inside this, we're going to use a string. So we're taking the a string, which is holding my name with random capitalization. This is what we're going to be calling into this to do the lowercasing. So we have to wrap it with our backslashes and our dollar signs. And then we're going to hold the result of the lowercasing into a different variable called a lowercase string. So let's check that out. Save, save. String 2. Get rid of these because we don't need them. And press this button. Now we have a string, which is my name with random capitalization. And then after we use the lowercase command, it just lowercases all the letters. To make sure that we're clear, you don't actually have to change these variables to different things in order to make this conversion. If I wanted to keep the same variable and just replace the weird capitalization with the lowercase, I can just save it back as the variable that it was, and I won't have two different variables that I have to keep track of. So we can test that out. Save, save. String 2. Close both of those. Boom. So it created the string, immediately lowercased it, and overwrote the lowercasing back on top of the variable we were using before. So we've taken that variable, we held information in it, we converted it, and then we held it back into that variable. This lets you not have like 15 different variables if you're doing conversions and stuff. You can just keep saving everything inside the same one if you need to. Another thing that we can do is we can use the string letters only or string numbers only to remove letters or numbers, whichever is appropriate, from a string. The example here, we have a string is holding the string I have 5 dogs with an exclamation mark. And we're using the string letters only to remove all of the numbers and the special characters, question marks, exclamation marks, periods, stuff like that. So once it converts, it is only gonna hold the letters, and it's gonna hold it inside a new variable called letters only. We can save, save. We can type in our word correctly. String 2, empty that out, paste. So we have the string, I have 5 dogs. Oh, and it removes spaces. So just know that if you have an entire sentence and all you want to do is remove numbers or special characters, spaces are special characters. So just keep an eye on that. Last thing we're gonna talk about is changing strings in more dynamic ways. So we're gonna open this last one. One of the most important things that I do when I'm dealing with strings is a replace feature, where I can replace symbols, spaces, specific words, anything like that with something else. And I typically do this with the @ symbol. Anytime you have a command that someone can @ another user, we want to make sure we remove that at so that we only have the user's name. In order to do that, we have a chat command on this button, and the chat command allows a user to tag another user. So what we do is we get the user that they're tagging, and if it has the @ symbol in it, we replace it with nothing. So it essentially removes the @ symbol specifically. So I have put no spaces here. It's just a blank box, right? So what we're pulling is name with symbol. We're using that string here, and we're gonna save the information that we do after we replace into a variable called name without symbol. And hit save. The trigger is !tag and then a wildcard, so we can put anything we want in there. Save. Let's go to string 3, if I can spell it correctly. All right, and then I'm gonna pull Twitch chat out. And it turns out Twitch chat is doing some stuff with announcements in Pokemon. We're gonna ignore that. !tag @ and I'm gonna tag myself, so Falnier. So now we see here, move this out of the way. We have name with symbol, so this is what it pulled in that chat message is @Falnier. And then we removed the symbol and replaced it with nothing. And then we have name without symbol. All right, so we'll close this one, open this up. So now what we're gonna look is to see how many times we can find something that exists inside of a string. So we have string equals, and then the sentence, I am a cat, I like cats. And what we're gonna be doing here is counting how many times the word cat appears in this string. So we're taking the string totally, and we're placing it here, we're wrapping it with backslashes and $signs. We're looking for the word cat anywhere in this, and we're gonna get a number for how many times it does exist in this phrase or in this string. And we're gonna save that number inside a variable called cat counter. So let's hit save, go to string 3, clear these out because we don't need them, and we're gonna press this button. So the string is, I am a cat, I like cats. And the word cat, or should I say the letters CAT, appear twice in this, so now we have the number 2. So we know how many times something exists. What we can do with that is we can find out whether or not a word, a phrase, a series of letters, numbers, whatever you need, you can find out if that even exists in the phrase at all. So let's say we were looking for the word dog. Save, go to string 3, clear these out, try this. So now I'm looking for the word dog and it does not appear anywhere in this string. So this is really good for checking to see not only how many times this appears, but does this word appear at all inside your string? And then you can use some if commands to say, if cat counter equals 0, which means it does not appear in your string, do this. Otherwise, do this other thing, because then it would at least appear one time, if not multiple times. There are reasons you would need to do that. I use it in some of my stuff. I don't have a clear example for why you would want to check if a specific word exists in your string, how many times it exists. There's a lot of different reasons why you would want that info. But if you can think of an application for this, this is how you can utilize that. The next thing we can do is not just finding out if something exists or how many times, but now we need to know where that word exists in the string. So what we have here is string equals, again, I'm a cat, I like cats. We're looking for the word cat, and we're starting at the very first character. For those of you that don't know, Lioranboard uses 0 indexing. That means anytime it counts something, it starts at 0. So if we're looking in an array, the very first item in the array is in spot 0. And then the second item in the array is spot 1, and then spot 2, and so on and so forth. So we're looking from the first character in the string, which is gonna be character number 0. We're starting from here and we're looking forward. And we wanna know the first instance that we wanna find the word CAT. So we're gonna hit save, string 3, delete these, and boom. So I'm a cat, I like cats. We're looking for CAT, And the very first time that we find that series of letters back to back is in spot 8. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I guess it is counting from 1, but at position 8 is where we're gonna find CAT. Now, why would knowing where the position of something be important? And you can also use your string position to count something or to see if something exists in your string the same way we did the string count, because if it can't find it, it's also gonna give you 0. So you can use string count or string position both to know whether or not something exists in your string if you're trying to dig through it for a specific piece of information. But how is knowing whether or not something is present useful? So let's look at the string clamp command, how to remove part of a string and hold the removed part. So again, we have our string, I am a cat, I like cats. We're gonna look inside that and we're going to remove specifically the word cat, this specific instance of the word cat. How do we do that? We use the string clamp and it's going to pull the word cat out and give us that word. So we have to know where that word is. So we use the start position that we got from here. So if we move this down, this is our string. We know where cat begins in our string. So we use that position. We count 3 letters and we hold these 3 letters inside this variable. Let's try that out. So in string 3, we have I'm a cat, I like cats. We started at position 8. We counted 3 spaces or 3 characters, and we removed what we found starting at position 8 and moving 3 characters, which is the word cat. It doesn't alter the string that we pulled it from. We just looked in there, got those letters or characters or spaces or numbers, whatever they were, in that part of the string, and we held that information into a new variable so we can reference it if we need to. Now, what happens if you want to actually remove that from the string and continue doing whatever you want with the string that you were originally working with? So let's say I don't want the word cat there. What we can do is we can use the string remove section. So our string is I'm a cat, I like cats. Our start position, we want to know where cat is, and we need to count 3 letters or 3 character slots so that we know what we're removing. So we take our string position, just like this. This is our string. We find out where cat starts. We use that starting position. We count 3 spaces or 3 character slots that we would put information in. We remove it from the string, and then this is what we're left with once we remove cat from the string. That's a lot of words. Let me show you what we're talking about. String 3. Close all this so you can see what's going on in here. So we have their string, I am a cat, I like cats. We found out where cat was. We removed those letters, and then this is the remainder of the sentence. I am a blank, I like cats. So the word cat was removed from the sentence, and then we kept going with the sentence. And now we can do something else with the rest of the sentence if we wanted to. I don't have a lot of examples as to the application that you personally would have going through maybe Twitch chat or usernames or information. But if you found a need to use a feature like this, you now know how to use that feature and hopefully have the ability to go make some really cool stuff with these extra string related bits of information. I know this lesson is a little bit longer, a little bit drier, but there's honestly so many things you can do with strings in Lioranboard. And there's things I haven't even touched on, extra features that you can do with strings if you're more of an advanced user. This is really more of a, what are strings and what are some minor things I can do with them kind of video or course, I guess you'd say. So hopefully this was useful to you. You can apply this to some things that you're making. Maybe this, hold the curtain back and you go, oh, there's this thing I really want to do and I couldn't figure out how to do it. But now this, you've given me a really cool tool that I can use to go and implement this thing I've been wanting to do. And if that's the case, awesome. I'm super glad. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other Learn to Lioranboard 2 videos. Don't forget, I stream 3 days a week on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, where I make really, really cool stuff using Lioranboard live on stream. And don't forget that if you enjoy this content, hit the subscribe button. It gives me feedback that you enjoy the content and helps push me to continue to make more. Hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.